What's up, fam? Welcome to Joint Minds. I'm John,
I'm Jeremy.
and I hope y'all are having a wonderful day. And in today's video, we're going to be comparing esports athletes versus traditional athletes and get to the bottom line of who the real athlete is. Are athletes the real athletes, or are the keyboard warriors the real athletes? If you guys enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of our content. But for all y'all that want to hate on our videos and leave a dislike, make sure you at least talk shit in the comment section below. Why do you feel that esports athletes aren't comparable to regular sports athletes?
Well, I don't know, man. It's kind of like, what do you like? I don't think esports players are really like kind of like the same as like MMA fighters or like football players or NBA players, like in terms of like what they have to do. Like, so you can't really like compare them in that kind of sense. Like, what's like in an athletic sense, like not really. Like,
well, why not? Just because their athleticism is just tested in different ways.
how?
There's just more of a reaction speed and like a reaction speed test more than anything when it comes to video games. Whereas athletes, like, sure, they have to have some form of reaction, but you're reacting to in a more like to humans instead of a computer, instead of an AI.
I don't think so necessarily, because I think like aren't most like esports like competitively played against like other people?
They are, but like things happen in like a fraction of a second. Whereas like in like football, for example, you can see the ball traveling through the air, and you have time to like move over there in a few seconds. Or like if you need to block somebody, there's still like more than a fraction of a second to react to this person. It might take a second, but that's still way.
But that's not necessarily true, because I mean, like in football, like I played football for like 6 years, dude, and that things can happen in a fraction of a second, man. Like the quarterback can get sacked in like a second. Like a ball can get tipped and picked in like 3/4 of a second. A ball can get fumbled and recovered by somebody in like half a second, you know? And like,
yes, but like those things, like you can like see them happening and you can react to them physically. Whereas a lot of times in like esports, it's just predictions. That like some of the craziest things that happen in esports are just like people predicting something to happen, and they just like do the prediction, and some people even like react to the prediction.
I think that's the same thing in regular sports too, though. Like when you like see Tom Brady like playing football, he's making predictions on the defense, he's making adjustments, and he knows what they're going to do, and he finds those openings, and that's what makes those great plays and shit, and makes easy wins for him, you know, is because he's making predetermined assumptions about his enemy and what they're doing. He's making those reads on the 11 players on the defense, you know. Like, he's keeping track of 11 people at the same time, whereas usually, like, it's like, what, if you're comparing, like, Fortnite to, like, the NFL, like, in Fortnite, you're usually, if you're playing solos, obviously, you're usually fighting no more than 1, maybe 2, sometimes 3 people at a time, and usually people fucking fail to, like, that, you know? But, like, in football, like, Tom Brady, he, like, has to keep track of 11 people's positioning at once, and then make an adjustment, like, call, like, right there, and then, like, that's it, you know?
Yeah, but it doesn't require him to make a mechanical skill change.
Yes,
Whereas,
it does. Because
no, it's not mechanical. You just said he has to make an adjustment in his head based off of 11 people's position. So this is all in his head.
No, because he could be changing the play that he has to play now.
Yes, but it's not like something that's, oh, I just shot this person. I have literally less than a quarter of a second to get out of his like line of sight, and then I'm dead, versus like, oh, this person like maybe cut off my defender, so I have to start moving, and I have to like maybe make a moving pass. You know, there's things you can see, and you can start adjusting.
Yeah,
and like,
I think those things happen like in a fraction of a second. Like in football, like there are like so many like plays made where like it's only like a super small window, like in like the 51st Super Bowl, like between the Patriots and like the Falcons, Julian Edelman made a catch that was like literally the ball was like 3/4 of an inch like off of the ground, you know, and like that's like all his like reactionary, like getting his fucking hand under there and like cuffing it and like all that stuff, you know, like that's like reactionary, and Tom Brady throwing it like in between like several defenders, like those split seconds of like seeing the defender like turn his hips, like when like a wide receiver like fakes a break outside. If he sees that defender turn it, he's got like that second to throw it before that defender readjusts and catches up with the receiver, you know, because it only takes half a second to just turn your body back the other way, you know. But it's in that window that, you know, the quarterback is throwing it for the receiver to catch it, because that's the only break period.
Okay, but then we can, if we're gonna say that they both have micro, like, split-second reactions, we can have to look at it from the standpoint of how often do these interactions occur throughout the period of the competition. Whereas in esports, it seems like those micro interactions are happening constantly throughout the whole entire event, and there's no break for it. Whereas in football, there's in-between plays. There's, you know, a certain period of time before the next massive play for you to adjust and take a break and reset. Whereas in esports, it's consistent.
But you're saying like, just because the play doesn't happen during like that time, like, or like just because there's not a big play, you're saying that there's no reactions or anything happening, when that's not like true at all.
No reactions. I'm just saying that you have to have more consistent reactions in esports than you have to do in regular sports.
I don't think that's true at all. I think there are like just as many like reactions. Like, I think there's plenty of reactions like happening like in both. Like, I don't think it's even possible to really try to compare, because it's like football is 11 players on each side of the ball, you know, and most, I think esports aren't that many players. Like, League is 5, World of Warcraft's like 3, you know,
the largest team you're gonna get on any
yeah,
esports
it's like 4 or 5, you know. Yeah, but it's like, so you can't compare like the number of reactions like happening, and not only that, like there's so much happening on both sides, and it's so like down to perspective and what like that individual player sees. First of all,
okay, we can do one-on-one sports if you want to compare it. Then on athleticism, you can do MMA fighters versus street Fighter, the video game, like competitors.
Okay,
you know?
Bro, dog, don't even you fucking dare try to compare. Compare esports like fighters, like those players, to like actual MMA fighters, bro. Like, come on.
I'm not necessarily saying that they're the same level of athlete. I'm just saying that, like, why is somebody that is doing a one-on-one sport? I just use it because it's like easier to see, like, oh, there's
the one-on-one aspect, basically.
Yeah, the one-on-one aspect, and it's just something that's like linear.
Okay.
So when you have an MMA fighter, obviously they have to train years and to harness their skills. But like in Street Fighter, like the video game, like you don't have to train years, but you still have to have very good reactions and like mechanical like excellency to be good at the game.
Yeah, but like that's not like the only thing that like makes up like athleticism, though. Like, you gotta think about, like, excuse me, there's also, like, physical and, like, mental endurance, you know, and, like, how physically and mentally challenging it actually is to, like, play that sport or esport, you know? Like,
well, what defines physical and mental intelligence? Just because you're getting...
Not intelligence, toughness, and, like, difficulty.
Yeah, but what measures that? Just because you're getting hit does not make it physically tougher than other sports necessarily.
You think?
Just because it doesn't necessarily make it more mentally difficult than other sports.
I'm pretty sure that most people would consider like getting punched in the face like a whole bunch of times is mentally and physically harder than trying to play and practice a video game.
Oh no! But I'm not. Again, I'm not comparing the physical exertion aspect of it. I'm just saying, just because you get hit does not make it more difficult on a physical exertion, because when you want to compare, I feel
but there's biological reactions and like physical exertion to like support like that you are physically doing more like in MMA versus like practicing a video game.
There's biological reactions that happen from the mental strain of a video game too.
Yeah,
So So what necessarily makes this more just because there's a I feel physical pain reaction, why is that more difficult than the mental strain that's caused from a video game?
Well, I think the physical strain can also create mental strain, like straight up, like it's pretty mentally tough to like go out there and be willing to get like punched in the face like by 7 different people like 4 times a week, just because you're trying to get better or something, like, or you just want to learn how to defend yourself. Like, you got to have some level of mental toughness and discipline and, strength and ambition to go out there and be willing to, take and sustain that actual physical damage that hurts. Like, it's going to hurt, like, you've played tennis, bro. Like,
Yeah, but
playing through the pain is mental toughness.
Yeah, but okay, it's part of its mental toughness, but at the same time, it's like mental toughness comes in different ways for each sport. So like the best way I can explain it is look at every sport in the world with the exception of sports like tennis and volleyball that have like a system, have a scoring system very similar to that, like with sets, and like they go over like one match is the course of like multiple like mini sets. Those type of sports are the only sports in the world that you can be winning and losing at the same time. And we all know when we're losing, we're not in the same like as happy and jolly and like as stress free as we are as when we're winning. We're more relaxed and just kind of going with the flow. Now imagine having the stress of losing while you're winning at the same time. That creates a unique mental stress for those specific sports, which could be more difficult when you compare like maybe tennis to fighting. Whereas if you're winning a fight, you're winning a fight. You're not winning and losing.
I don't think so. I think you can win and lose a fight at the same time, because you can be winning in terms of like blows dealt, but you can be less durable than your opponent, and you can be feeling a fuck ton of pain still,
No, yeah, but the more or less of the point is if you're dominating a fight and you're winning a fight, yeah, sure, you might be able to take less blows, but if you're winning and dominating, they're probably not hurting you. They're probably playing into your game, and you're probably ahead of the person. Obviously, if you're in a more close, evenly matched fight, that's a little bit different. But for the most part, when we're talking about I'm winning and I'm clearly losing, there's no sports where you're like clearly winning and losing at the same time, except for sports with that type of point system.
Okay. What like esports like qualify into that kind of point system? Like, do you know any?
Counter-Strike.
Okay. How so?
Because
I've never played Counter-Strike. Yeah, I've never played Counter-Strike. Okay. So if you could give me a basic rundown, that'd be great.
So the way Counter-Strike works is they'll pick maps and they'll play like, you have terrorists and counter-terrorists, and their job, the terrorists to get their bomb off, and the counter-terrorists to defuse the bomb and kill the whole team and things like that. And so what'll happen is like you'll play, I think, a best of 30, first to like 16 or something like that, or best of 15, like whatever the point system is, and they can like they'll play like 5 like as terrorists and then 5 as counter-terrorists and like switch sides and things like that.
Yeah.
So you can be up like 8 wins, like you can be like 8-5. You can be up 8-5, but then lose a match and be winning but losing at the same time because you just lost the game because of the point system, but you're winning in the overall match. And then after you get like that 15 points on that one map, you won the first map. Now you have to win 2 out of 3 maps.
Okay.
So you could even be won the first map, and then you could be like down in the second map, like 8-5 in the same scenario. You could be winning the match, but you could be losing the match this map at the same time.
Okay, I get what you're saying by basically like saying like esports can have multiple layers to their kind of competition and scoring, and that makes for a certain level of mental toughness, as opposed to like traditional sports that have a very basic kind of scoring system where it's just the more points is usually the one who's winning.
Essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
And that creates a different type of mental strain, which results in a different form of physical exertion. It's kind of like the same thing. Like we both play chess.
Yeah.
And we know how like mentally.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up chess. Yeah.
Chess players, they burn a shit ton of calories just for sitting there and thinking.
Yeah.
Because of the mental stress that it in their body.
I consider chess a sport, just so we're clear. Just so everyone is clear. It is not an esport, that is a sport.
Oh no,
Go on.
yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
It's
chess,
not. You can't say it's an esport.
yeah,
There's no video.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean with online chess now, like and online chess being pretty popular since Queen's Gambit. Dude, online chess is really popular since Queen's Gambit.
No,
you should
no,
check
yeah,
out the
yeah, no,
analytics on
definitely.
Twitch, bro. Like it's crazy. Like it's been sustained for a good minute, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, yeah, I was not saying anything about the Queen's Gambit. I was just more saying like, yeah, no, it's not an esport because it originated on a piece of physical pieces, whereas like esports you can only play them
Yeah.
on the computer or on some form of hardware and software. Because there's arcade games. That's how like Street Fighter started out. Was like they were playing on like arcade games and shit.
But-
and they switched over to joysticks and shit.
The thing is, though, would you consider like a professional chess player an athlete?
Why not?
Because
you gotta
I just-
remember, sports. Yes, you have to have an athletic aspect to it, but the biggest part about sports competition is the mental part. The
I feel
mental
like
part.
athleticism. Go on. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
Yeah, because this is the thing was with athleticism, when you're a professional at the top level, odds are everybody can do the same thing that you can do, but maybe they can just do it more consistently than you, and that's because of their mental toughness and their mental skills, their ability to focus for a long enough period of time to do something at a high level for so long.
The thing is, though, is that like I feel like athleticism isn't just about like solely either mentality or like physical ability. I feel like you have to kind of have both to be considered like athletic. You know what I mean? I think you can be like intelligent and have good reactions and like be a great like esports player or video game player, but like to be like an athlete, I don't necessarily know if like I really consider like them being athletic, because like I get like you have to react with like your hands and like hand-eye coordination is like very like important in like video games and stuff, but there is just a different aspect of like reaction time to like trying to dodge a hook coming like that's trying to knock you out, and like you have to block that and like move and react to that in less than a second, and bring your arm up and guard against that, as opposed to just hitting spacebar or hitting tab or hitting caps lock. Like there's a different level of skill and there's this different level of skill and like discipline, and I think that applies to most traditional sports that make them actual athletes.
Well, okay, this is the thing though, where I kind of disagree with you on. I don't think